After 7 years of a secret marriage, I'd been silently sacrificing myself like a nanny, while George publicly announced his relationship with a new employee at his company. To please his new lover, he insisted his son eat the entire cake she made, despite his severe cream allergy. In the end, my son ended up in the ICU, yet he blamed me for overreacting. After my heart grew cold, I took my son far away, but he knelt down and begged me not to leave. On our 7th anniversary, I went to bring George lunch but overheard him complaining to his brother outside the training room, "Ever since Kitty had the baby, touching her makes me feel sick. That huge scar on her belly looks like a centipede." I traced the uneven scar through the fabric, my eyes clouding over. Back then, his eyes had been filled with tears as he told me I'd worked so hard and was a great asset to his family. Just as I was feeling down, he pushed open the door and came out. Seeing me, he froze. "Why are you here?" I pointed to the lunchbox in my hand. A teammate beside me quipped, "George, who's this? Your admirer?" George snapped sharply, "Stop guessing. This is my housekeeper, delivering my lunch." Housekeeper? A wry smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. After getting married, I became a full-time homemaker, washing clothes, cooking meals, and taking care of the kids. Isn't that exactly what a housekeeper does? Let me see what's for dinner. My partner reached for the lunchbox, but George slapped his hand away. "Get lost. This is my special nutrition meal." "You? Stick to the cafeteria." "George, what yummy treats did you bring? They smell amazing." A girl with a sweet smile walked over, naturally slipping her arm through his, and said in a playful pout, "It's your favorite cola chicken wings, you little glutton." With that, he affectionately tickled her nose. My heart skipped a beat. To keep the chicken wings from being too high in calories, I'd actually tried out several recipes. "George, you're so biased. You specifically had the nanny make Tina's favorite dish and then claim it's not favoritism," the teammates shouted in unison upon seeing this. Of course, Big Brother George spoils me the most. The girl's smile was dazzlingly bright. I walked over indifferently, snatched the lunchbox from her hands, slammed the lid shut, and tossed it into the trash. "Kitty, what the hell are you doing?" he exclaimed, then proceeded to meticulously wipe her down for spilled soup that wasn't even there. "The chicken wings aren't fresh anymore," I explained calmly. Just as I was about to leave, George grabbed my wrist. "Apologize." "It's okay," the little girl murmured, biting her pearl-white teeth as tears welled up in her eyes. "Nanny probably just didn't want me to get an upset stomach." Teammates murmured among themselves, and George's face flushed with embarrassment. "Apologize," he repeated, his tone growing harsher. Every time I clashed with George, I was the one who ended up bowing my head in apology. "I'm sorry," I said, lowering my eyes. "Can we go now?" George finally let go of my hand, which was already red and swollen. Unwilling to look at them any longer, I turned and left. George didn't even come out to see me off until I got into the car. At night, after the child had fallen asleep, I kissed his forehead and walked from the bedroom to the kitchen. The food was reheated again and again, yet George still hadn't returned. The clock hand reached midnight, the door opened, and he walked in, skillfully tossing his shoes aside. Seeing the candle still on the table, he looked apologetic. "Sorry, I forgot. Today marks Tina's 100th day on the job. Everyone went out for karaoke to celebrate her." Tina, he certainly called her that affectionately. Don't get the wrong idea, she's our club mascot. Everyone loves to spoil her. George offered a rare explanation. "Including you, a married man, right?" I asked coldly. "You're a grown man, why are you picking on a little girl? If you hadn't embarrassed her earlier, would I have had to stand by her side?" His raised voice woke their son. Seeing my grim expression, he softened his tone. I only think of her as a little sister. Don't read too much into it. Go comfort the baby. I have training tomorrow, so I'll sleep in the study tonight. With that, he shut the bedroom door, leaving me alone with the wailing child. I frantically calmed the baby down, then dragged my exhausted body to bed, yet sleep eluded me. Looking at the empty room, a pang of hurt welled up inside me. If I hadn't overheard his conversation with his brother, I truly would have believed he was avoiding me because of exhaustion from training. But for the sake of our child, I can endure it. A few days later, Rory handed me an invitation to the club. He was the only person at the company who knew about George and my secret marriage. I rummaged through my closet for ages and only managed to find one dress that was barely wearable. Ever since becoming a mom, I've only bought loose-fitting casual clothes and rarely any pretty dresses. Walking through the long corridor led to the banquet hall. Everyone around me was dressed up in their finest, and I was the only one who stood out like a sore thumb. I scanned the crowd for George, as Rory had mentioned he had an important announcement today. Just as someone remarked, "They make such a perfect pair," I looked up and felt a sharp pang in my chest. George was walking toward us, hand in hand with Tina. They exchanged a smile, and the very air seemed sweet. The music began, and the two danced gracefully under the spotlight. What a handsome couple. Rory noticed my unease and looked slightly awkward. I thought he was going to announce that you two were married. Huh. I thought so too. The song ended before George finally noticed me. Seizing a moment when no one was looking, he yanked me into a corner. Didn't we agree to wait for the right moment to announce it? What are you doing here? Wait. I waited 3 years for you to rise from team member to captain. Then I waited another 4 years for you to become a top-tier athlete. How much longer do you expect me to wait? Until you're off with some other woman? I fought back the tears welling in my eyes. What are you freaking out about? This is all company business. I'm not actually dating her, he snapped, his voice tinged with impatience. I snorted derisively. You should know he used to dread fans finding out he was dating. We dated in secret, never even went to the movies once. Just to hype up a ship, does it have to be this high profile? George, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. They're waiting for us to pour the champagne. Tina's sweet voice chimed in just then. Nanny, you're here too. Why don't we all go in and have a drink, she offered, feigning warmth. Before I could answer, George hurriedly dismissed them. She has things to attend to at home and must leave. Fearing he might seem too cold-hearted, he added, drive carefully on your way. Watching their backs as they walked away arm in arm, I began to doubt my own resolve for the first time. I stumbled home in a daze, and my son Frank came running up on his little legs. Mommy, did you see Daddy? I forced a smile and gently stroked his hair. Of course. Daddy also said he's planning a surprise for your birthday. Really? That's great. Seeing him jumping for joy, all my unhappiness vanished into thin air. Soon, Frank's third birthday arrived. To prevent George from forgetting again, I had reminded him a whole month earlier. He gave a careless nod, though I couldn't tell if he'd actually taken it to heart. Sure enough, we waited from day into night but never saw him. Every time we called, it either went straight to busy or his phone was turned off. Not wanting to upset Frank, I called to ask about Rory George's whereabouts. He went to City A, didn't he tell you? He must have forgotten because he's so busy. Defending him instinctively had become second nature to me. Just as I was pondering how to explain it to my son, Frank's baby voice comforted me. Daddy's busy, but having Mommy with Frank is enough. After finishing the longevity noodles together, I scrolled through my phone and came across a photo of George holding hands with a girl. The caption read, "One true friend in life is enough." Just as I was about to take a closer look, I realized I'd been blocked. I was certain that girl was Tina. She had the exact same bracelet. I stayed up several nights crafting it, only for George to hand it over to her. He said it was just a little girl's trinket, nothing special. If she wanted it, he'd give it to her. He didn't know that simple-looking bracelet held a charm I'd prayed for on my knees before the Buddha, just to ensure his career would go smoothly. The next morning, Frank suddenly started foaming at the mouth and convulsing. I immediately called George, begging him to come back quickly. But he responded coldly, "If he's sick, take him to the hospital." "I'm not a doctor, why are you calling me?" I tried to say something more, but he'd already hung up. I clearly heard women chatting and giggling on the other end. When I called back, it went straight to busy. I dialed 120 for emergency services, and the ambulance screeched to a halt outside moments later. Waiting outside the emergency room, I was consumed with anxiety, so much so that I didn't even notice my fingernails had snapped off. After making dozens of calls, all of them were cut off by him. The operating room lights were as bleak as my own complexion. Finally, the doctor emerged. "Doctor, how is my son?" I stepped forward to ask, my voice hoarse and terrifying. Thank goodness he got to the hospital in time, he almost didn't make it. I kept thanking them. But what were you parents thinking? You didn't even know what your child couldn't eat? Frank has always been allergic to dairy, and I knew that, so I never bought any. How could there be cream in the house? Suddenly I remembered the cake that had fallen on the floor. It looked awful, obviously made by a novice. After getting in 4, Frank had regained consciousness. "Frank, who gave you that cake?" I asked as gently as I could. He blinked silently. "Didn't Mom tell you not to eat the cream?" I snapped, nearly scared out of my wits by his unconscious state. "Frank knows," he stammered, equally shaken, tears still clinging to his lashes. "Dad made me finish it. He doesn't allow me to waste food." Seeing his pitiful expression, I couldn't bring myself to scold him. After tucking the blanket around my son, I made several more phone calls. It wasn't until the sun was setting that George finally showed up. The moment he arrived, he started berating me. "How did you take care of the child? How did he get sick out of the blue?" I didn't want to argue in front of the kids, so I just said our son had an allergic reaction to the cake. He quickly tried to justify himself, "But he's fine now, isn't he? Boys aren't supposed to be so delicate. If you ask me, you've spoiled him rotten, he can't eat this, he can't eat that." I really wanted to ask him, am I overreacting? Over there, the son called out to George, "Is that Daddy coming?" George touched his forehead. "Frank, you have to be good and listen, don't be like Mommy and throw tantrums." "Frank is very good, Daddy." "Where did you go last night?" "Frank missed you so much." He was momentarily at a loss for words and couldn't help but tell a lie. "Dad's busy with a competition." I knew he was with Tina. The girl's post read, "A man who knows how to take care of others is incredibly charming." Though only a side profile was shown, I recognized George instantly. Once he was so considerate toward me, but now it's mostly perfunctory. Before long, George was called away by a phone call. Before leaving, he reminded me to give Frank lighter meals, then couldn't resist asking how to make sweet and sour spare ribs. I knew he was rushing off to fawn over Tina. The little girl has a sweet tooth, and her social media feed is filled with nothing but desserts. I didn't call him out on it, but calmly said, "I'll send you the recipe to your phone later." He sincerely thanked me, added a "thanks for your hard work," and then walked away without looking back. Seeing my son looking so downcast, I made a silent resolution. Children bounce back quickly. After a week of rest, he was back to his lively self. Back home, as I was tidying up, I saw Frank carefully gathering the scattered cake pieces. I couldn't help but remind him, "Frank, the cake has mold on it, it's no longer safe to eat." He gave me a broken smile, "But this is the birthday present Dad made up for me. I can't bear to throw it away." I turned away to wipe my tears. "Then let's put it in the fridge to keep it." I packed the cake into a box for him and tied a pretty bow. "Thanks, Mom." He planted a smack on my cheek and perked up again. I couldn't bear it, and after much hesitation, I finally asked, "Frank, if one day Dad and Mom were to separate, who would you choose?" He tilted his little head and asked me, "Will Dad and Mom really separate?" Mom was just saying, what if? Can't our family stay together forever? My eyes stung as I kissed his little head. I made up my mind, no matter how hard it gets, I'll take the kids with me. Rory heard I was getting a divorce and urged me to reconsider for Frank's sake. After all, kids from single-parent families are more likely to get bullied. Seeing my son's hopeful eyes, I agreed to give him another chance. George had a friendly match coming up in a week. Rory specially sent me 2 tickets. Traffic was jammed on the road, and despite rushing all the way with my child, we still arrived late. The match was already halfway through, and George was temporarily trailing. Frank clenched his fists and shouted desperately, "Go! Dad, go! Young man, don't shout nonsense. Where's your dad here?" George's fans looked thoroughly displeased. I offered an apologetic smile. "The little one doesn't know any better, he idolizes him like a father." Only then did the fan let it go and turn back to the game. "But he's clearly Frank's dad." I quickly covered his mouth, signaling him to keep quiet. The child couldn't grasp the complexities of the adult world, why he had a father yet couldn't acknowledge him. He didn't know George and I were in a secret marriage, having only registered without a wedding ceremony. As the competition reached its climax, George ultimately won by a mere second. A thunderous cheer erupted around them, with the majority of the crowd being his fans. After receiving the award, he excitedly hung the medal around Tina's neck, and she responded with a passionate kiss. Envious murmurs rippled through the crowd, "So sweet, so adorable, you two better stay together forever." After the game, the organizers arranged an audience interaction event. As George walked past the stands, Frank couldn't help but call out, "Dad." Tina looked puzzled. "George, do you have a child?" His expression darkened instantly. "Of course not. What little brats are these, making a racket? Security, get them out of here." "What are you doing?" I stood up and blocked Frank's path. "What am I doing?" "Getting uninvited guests out of here, of course. These two are trolls trying to ruin my reputation," he declared with great conviction. His fans even came forward to back him up, accusing me of encouraging my son to falsely claim paternity. Unrelated people? I laughed bitterly in my rage. "Very well. Remember what you said today. No need for you to chase us out, we'll leave on our own." Taking Frank's hand, I led him away. George's refusal to acknowledge me was one thing, but to reject his own son was another. Once outside, I asked Frank once more whose side he would choose, my heart pounding with anxiety. I admit I had my own reasons for bringing him along. I wanted him to see his father more clearly. This time, he didn't hesitate. "I choose Mom, because Mom only has me." "All right, Mom will take Frank with her. Since I'm leaving, I need to be fully prepared." When I was being bullied at work, George was the one who helped me. So before I go, I plan to cook him a few meals as a way of repaying him. After we had that falling out, George disappeared for a while. Lately, he's been possessed by some strange force. For the first time ever, he's been coming home for dinner on time every day. But after eating, he always finds some excuse to leave the house. Unsurprisingly, he's off to see Tina again. I secretly followed Tina's Facebook using a fake account. Late at night, when all is quiet, I sneak a peek at her updates like some despicable voyeur. The young girl clearly looks like she's head over heels in love, either showing off gifts or flaunting her affection, her words brimming with adoration for George. She was even obsessed with winning her lover's heart through his stomach, just like the foolish me back then. I added her as a friend and shared my cooking secrets. She often raved about my recipes. Setting aside our rivalry, we somehow became friends. But she didn't know I had ulterior motives. Fearing George might challenge me for custody of Frank, I decided to strengthen my position. I joined the Tingyuan Club, a direct rival to George's Xinhuang Club. George seemed to have forgotten his success owed half to my contributions. I can help him succeed, and I can certainly help others succeed too. Since that's the case, I might as well give him a gentle reminder. Tingyuan Club is newly established and lacks the seasoned expertise of Xinhuang. After joining, I created personalized meal plans for each member, and their workout efficiency has improved significantly. That day, as I was reviewing the fitness test report, Oliver excitedly showed me his muscles. "Sis, you're amazing. Following your meal plan, I don't feel tired even after intense workouts. Look, I've gained a lot of muscle, no one dares call me skinny anymore. Don't get too cocky." I tapped him on the head with my folder. "Here's some advice, if you can't keep your mouth shut, the consequences will be severe." He rubbed his head. "Sis, you're not joking, are you?" Seeing my stern expression, Oliver immediately assured me, "Don't worry, I won't be greedy." I certainly wasn't joking. After all, this trait had already been proven in a certain someone, though he hadn't realized it himself. When they faced off once more, George's initial confidence quickly turned to disheartening despair. The moment the whistle blew, he found himself trailing far behind Oliver. As he tried desperately to catch up, he realized he simply couldn't muster the strength. In the end, he could only watch helplessly as the championship title that had once been his was snatched away. When confronted by reporters, he claimed he was not in good condition and then fled the scene. But once it happened again. As the incidents multiplied, more and more people began to question him. Some even suggested he retire early to make way for younger athletes. George thought he'd been slacking off in his training. Little did he know his mistake lay in trying to have his cake and eat it too. He fancied himself adept at juggling two women, but in truth, it was all my deliberate indulgence. The title of senior nutritionist doesn't come from empty boasts. Tina always consults me whenever she cooks. When she makes beef stew with tomatoes, I prepare mung bean porridge. Eating them together depletes vital energy. When she boils spicy hairy crabs, I make persimmon cakes. Eating them together can cause diarrhea. When she stir-fries celery with shrimp, I prepare cold-tossed shredded rabbit. Eating them together may lead to hair loss. George could never figure out where it all went wrong. He only had himself to blame for wanting it all. The more he ate, the more he hurt. His muscles gradually began to loosen, and he no longer possessed any strength. Until his mistakes piled up, even costing the team a championship they should have won, he found himself benched. After all, the club prioritizes profit. If you're valuable, they'll hold you in high regard. Once you lose your worth, you're nothing. Upon realizing he could no longer make waves, Tina decisively broke up with him and immediately started dating another promising prospect. Young girls admire strength. Once that aura fades, how many still hold on to pure affection? After being dumped, George came to me begging for us to get back together. His chin was covered in fresh stubble, dark circles ringed his eyes, and he was nowhere near the confident man he once was. "Kitty, I was wrong. You're the one who loves me most. You'll forgive me, right? His head dipped slightly, his eyes glistening with tears. George, I remember I've already signed the divorce papers. I remained completely unmoved. Forgive me, I was just momentarily tempted. Us, and Frank, let's just live well as a family. He grabbed my hand and forcefully slapped his own face with it, while passers-by pointed and gawked at the spectacle. George, what are you doing? I wrenched my hand free, frowning in annoyance. Who do you think you are, assuming an apology means forgiveness? I'm a clean freak, things others have used disgust me. With that, refusing to look at him again, I walked away without a backward glance. He stood alone at the bottom of the company building for a long time. It started raining, yet he remained standing motionless in the downpour, lost in thought. The front desk clerk asked if I wanted to send him an umbrella, worried he might catch a cold if he got any wetter. No need, I replied casually, he's an athlete, a little rain won't hurt him. Then I went back to my work. My eyes were glued to the data, but my thoughts drifted unconsciously to the past. On the day I was discharged after my C-section, a torrential downpour raged outside. I called George, begging him to pick me up, but he made excuses about being too busy. Struggling to hold the baby, I tried hailing a taxi alone, not a single one would stop. The wound hadn't even healed yet, and then I got caught in the rain, it hurt like hell. He just bought some random painkillers and brushed me off, saying, every other woman goes through this. You're just being dramatic. I thought he was just a clueless guy who didn't know how to express himself, but later I realized he knew exactly what he was doing. He'd make Tina brown sugar water during her period and patiently rub her lower abdomen. So what if he got a few drops of rain on him now? It was nothing compared to the pain I endured back then. George finally passed out. Watching him get carried into the ambulance, I felt not a shred of satisfaction. After George recovered, he resumed his daily routine of waiting for me downstairs at the office without fail. He'd either bring flowers or bubble tea, but I tossed them all straight into the trash. Undeterred, he showed up the next day with 2 movie tickets, insisting on taking me out to see a film. I glanced at it, Star Wars, Episode 5 tickets were incredibly hard to get. Once I managed to snag some, I was thrilled to ask him to go with me, only to be coldly turned down. He said he was a public figure and couldn't be seen at such an event. I begged him for days, but all he wanted to do was stay home and watch pirated movies with me. In the end, I had no choice but to swallow my pride and give away the tickets I'd fought so hard to get. That's been a thorn in my side ever since, and now he actually shows up with movie tickets trying to get back together? How ridiculous. No need. I weighed the ticket in my hand, refusing without hesitation. As a highly sought-after senior nutritionist now, I get movie tickets handed to me all the time, even VIP private screenings. Dad, we're leaving. You should go watch with that lady. Frank, that little rascal, knew exactly how to rub salt in George's wound. Oliver eagerly volunteered to drive us both, and his smug attitude nearly drove George half mad. The VIP theater boasts luxurious decor, a continuous lineup of thrilling films, and special effects far more realistic than pirated versions. I casually asked Oliver what would happen if paparazzi snapped photos of us watching a movie together. After all, athletes are always careful to protect their image. He was feeding Frank popcorn when he heard the remark, but didn't seem to care. If they want to film us, let them film us. It's my honor to be in the news with you guys. If I had a son as well behaved as Frank, I'd be smiling in my sleep. After saying that, he gave Frank a drink of water, taking better care of him than I did as his mother. Frank, who had been engrossed in the movie, suddenly piped up, I want Uncle Oliver to be my dad too. I quickly covered his mouth and shot Oliver an embarrassed glance. How about I be your godfather for now? Yay! Awesome! The two of them laughed and joked together. It was great to have someone willing to spoil Frank. After the show, Frank said he was hungry, so we headed to the noodle shop we often frequented. The owner greeted me warmly and offered me some homemade chili sauce to taste. "Kitty, I didn't know you liked spicy food." I looked up and saw it was George. He'd been following us all along and, seeing my noodles covered in chili flakes, blurted out the question without thinking. Yes, I used to love spicy food, but since George disliked it, I changed my preferences. Now I wonder what marriage truly brings to a woman. Is it losing oneself in the daily grind of housework, or the feeling of unrecognized worth? At least I realized it before it was too late. George tried adding a few spoonfuls of chili sauce to his noodles, but after just a few bites, the heat made him cough uncontrollably. "If you can't handle it, don't eat it," Oliver said, scooping more into his own bowl. "Hey boss, this chili sauce packs a punch." "You're an athlete, you shouldn't eat too much," I said, replacing the lid as I reminded him. "Alright, I'll stop adding more after finishing these." He was obedient. Once he said he wouldn't eat more, he didn't. When I looked up again, George had finished his noodles and left without me noticing. But that was none of my concern. That day, Rory said he had urgent business with me and sent me a location. I followed the navigation all the way out to the suburbs. It turned out to be a wedding venue. George had actually asked him to trick me into coming here. Red roses blaze like fire, crystal arches radiate light. The melody of Richard's wedding dream drifts through the air. It fulfills every wedding fantasy I've held for over 2 decades. Had he come sooner, perhaps my heart might still stir. George, dressed in a white suit, knelt on one knee, pulled out a ring, and gazed at me with deep affection. A chorus of cheers erupted from the crowd. "Marry him! Marry him!" I turned and walked away. George grew impatient, rising to grab my arm. "Kitty, I gave you the wedding you wanted. Isn't this what you desired?" The doll I cherished at 10 wouldn't appeal to me at 15. Likewise, the love I yearned for at 20 holds no expectation for me now. "George, don't you think it's all too late?" I brushed his hand away. He tried to pull me back, but Oliver stopped him. "Didn't you hear what Kitty said? Stop bothering her." "Who do you think you are, getting involved in my business with Kitty?" George's face darkened. "I'm Kitty's suitor, of course. You pretty boy trying to steal someone else's wife." George swung a punch at Oliver. Caught off guard, Oliver was hit squarely on the nose, and blood quickly began to flow. "If someone like you can shamelessly beg for a second chance, why can't I pursue someone?" Oliver retorted. "George, what the hell are you doing?" I fished a tissue from my bag to stop Oliver's bleeding. Thankfully, it clotted quickly. "You never knew what Kitty truly wanted, your self-righteous gestures only moved yourself. Kitty never liked red roses, that color was too much like blood." In that moment, Oliver was no longer the carefree young man, but astonishingly mature. I tugged at Oliver's sleeve. "Stop wasting your breath on him. Let's go." Once in the car, I sank into memories. After we got our marriage certificate, I asked George when we'd have the wedding. He promised we'd do it once he'd solidified his position in the squad. "Trust me, you'll be the most beautiful bride on your wedding day," he assured me solemnly. But he only made good on his promise now. Oliver cautiously studied my expression. "Did what I said earlier upset you?" I snapped back to reality. "No, thank you for covering for me just now." He slammed on the brakes and looked at me earnestly. "No, I mean it. Kitty, can I ask you out?" My heart skipped a beat, and I could only manage, "Go ahead. Just focus on driving." Noticing my flustered state, he chuckled softly and turned his attention back to the road. In the evening, I went to pick up Frank from school only to find he'd already been picked up by someone else. Just as I was about to confront the teacher, my phone dinged with a text from George. "You've been pretty busy lately, so I'll take Frank to stay with me for a few days." I replied, "All right, I'll come pick him up in a week." "Aren't you afraid he'll take Frank away?" Oliver looked worried, showing his awareness as a godfather. He is Frank's father after all. I can't deprive Frank of his right to enjoy his father's love. Besides, I raised Frank from scratch. I have confidence in him. The old me would have been worried, but now I'm strong enough to not be afraid. When I went to pick them up, George was taking Frank to the amusement park. The two of them were riding the carousel together, and with his long arms and legs, he looked comically cramped on the horse. Seeing me arrive, his expression visibly relaxed. "Mom, I missed you so much. You finally came to pick me up." Frank rushed toward me, arms outstretched. I pulled him into a hug. "Did you have fun?" "I'm much happier with Mommy." "Mommy, Daddy's bow tie looks awful, and his cooking is disgusting. There's even eggshells in his scrambled eggs with tomatoes." The little one started complaining nonstop. "Kitty, I finally understand how hard things were for you back then. I've been ignoring you all this time." His words were filled with guilt toward me. "It's all in the past. I didn't care much. I've weathered the toughest days, only spring blossoms await me now. Can we ever go back?" He hesitated for a long time before finally asking. "What's done is done. The rift between us is like this scar, even after it scabs over, it's always there." I stroked the scar on my stomach and said calmly, "So you heard everything that day?" He instinctively wanted to explain, yet couldn't find the words. "I think this scar is beautiful. It's a badge of courage and resilience." Oliver gently traced the scar, his expression tender. "Uncle Oliver was right, my mom is truly amazing." The little one even kissed it reverently. "This is a symbol of Mom's love for me. See, I won't hold a grudge anymore, because plenty of people don't mind it." "Frank, can Dad still come see you?" George turned his hopeful gaze toward Frank again. "I used to wish Dad could spend more time with me, but now I hope you never come looking for me again. I don't want to put Mom in a difficult position." Frank spoke with utmost sincerity. George seemed shaken, taking a few unsteady steps back. "Goodbye," I waved at him, leading Frank away. Frank sat astride Oliver's neck like a horse, giggling all the way. Happiness was so close to me all along, yet I let it slip away. Watching our retreating figures, George murmured to himself,